Hello. Hey, check. This is Scott Eustace. I had a call to make a video about how to search for pipelines. So this is just a brief thing about how to use the Sunrise system to check for something you know is coming every week, and a little bit about our process of reviewing new proposals for environmental justice impact. We're in the Louisiana coast. We use this sunrise.com, sonris.com. And this GIS access gives you the whole state, anything you want to know about oil and gas. But we want to know about St. James and the coast. So we can click on this zoom in and go in. And then in this coastal management layer, click on all kinds of different permits, some of which have been publicly noticed, some of which exist already, and a lot of which, some of which haven't been publicly noticed. So we can search for them, even though they haven't got a comment period yet. And in St. James, we have a lot of pipelines. So we can zoom in, closely to this area and pick it out. One of the things we can do is, if we know an existing oil pipeline like the Exxon pipeline behind St. James, and we have its permit number 2018-0017, we can make a live map link, which is a lot like the general map. It's got some templates behind it, but it zooms you right in to where you want to be looking for new pipelines. This is a crude oil pipeline, and it needed about 70-odd repairs in 2018. They haven't started yet, but it's in this right-of-way that we're concerned is going to see another crude oil pipeline through wetland forests that keep St. James from flooding, that sequester carbon, do all the things we like about wetland forests. And this live map link gives you this buffer, so you can see a mile from all of these pipeline repairs. This is an older crude oil pipeline, so I think it's been repaired, about 300, 400 times in the last 5 years. And they have to do those anomaly surveys. So, those anomalies are each a point. So it ends up as a point layer, but if there's a new pipeline proposal, it's going to be in the lines layer. So we're going to unclick, there's a polygon layer. We're going to unclick that. We've unclicked the points layer. We're just looking for lines, and maybe it's hard to see the lines because they're blue. We can also pick a different map, maybe the 2012 imagery, so that you can see that blue more clearly. Excuse me. If we go to the table of contents, coastal management, coastal permits lines, there's a magnifying glass over here. And you'll notice that this over here starts to say select by rectangle. And you can go to someplace, say behind the Sunshine property, behind St. James, and just select a bunch of stuff. And you can get all of the linear features that are permitted. Some of these might be levees. Some of them might be drainage canals. There's a whole lot of pipelines, and we already see, if Travis London asked us to look for oil pipelines, the Swordfish pipeline in this Exxon right-of-way, we can already see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And even this one over here are possible candidates. And then the rectangle tool brings up this list. You can download the list into Excel using this button. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go down, and I'm going to click on this permit number for the things in 2018. That's going to give me things like a Williams company pipeline. It's a oh gosh. Well, they need to reinstall a valve on a 30-inch crude oil pipeline. Well, a 30-inch pipeline. I can't. Maybe that's a gas, but I imagine it is not. In 2016, Hillcore built a ring levee. But we can click on this header here, coastal use number. Click on it a couple times and get the ones that rise to the top, including this one, which is the ACE pipeline. Now, this is a project we've since discovered is from Phillips 66, from St. James. It's, you know, it's an incredible amount of material. It's over 500 acres of wetland. It has just been received. It's under review. But, you know, we don't have a thing yet. But if we recall this number, you know, we can make a live map with that number by just cutting and pasting that. You know, it wants to go to Exxon. Instead of Exxon, we'll make it go to the ACE pipeline. Boom. And we can see some things about the ACE pipeline. So I have that as a bookmark, you know, in my, that URL is a bookmark in my bookmarks, and I can just replace the 8-digit code with a different one to get a different live map. We've got 1347 ACE pipeline. We've got 0785, the N-Link midstream. That's part of the Formosa project. I've got 0767, South Louisiana methanol. This is the facility, right? It says, you know, hey, there never was a public notice for this because it was found to be exempt. It was in Fastlands. They made that determination last year. Enterprise products. Application withdrawn. Fascinating. 723, again, enterprise products. 687, enterprise products is a new one. Instead of an 11-inch, we got a 12-inch pipeline. So 0687, we want to remember that. 0487, Boardwalk, Louisiana. So here's something that we know is associated with the Formosa project. So that's another one where we want to get the shapefile associated with, you know, with the project. Boom, there it is. Now you can download all of these shapefiles by clicking on this extract polygon. You can get a shapefile for all of the lines, and the pipelines are aligned. So we can then download that and then open it in Google Earth. You have to go to, you know, open it as a shapefile, and you want to restrict it to, you know, our St. James area because there's just so many. It's going to take forever. But if we do that, boom, you get everything. Lots of interesting stuff. And from there, we can find the numbers that we want, like 0487, the Boardwalk pipeline. And if we go over to our shapefile and we click on the map, it highlights that Boardwalk shapefile. And then we can copy and paste it in the new file, Boardwalk. I like to put the number 0487. and then right-click on it, save it as a KML. Boom. So in that way, we've created a shapefile that we can use for public display. You know, if people aren't familiar with Google Earth, we could put it in the Google Maps. Because I know a lot of people are concerned, you know, with homeowners who are going to be right next to this pipeline construction. That's been a problem before. People like on Evangeline Drive have had their utility features, their utility lines severed because of the different pipeline construction. They've had foundations cracked, you know, so we want these folks to be aware that something is happening. Also, this is going to go across Bayou Lafourche. It's got to get a drinking water permit because everyone in the 4-parish area, about 300,000 people, drink from Bayou Lafourche. We also want them to have, you know, in the past we've changed pipelines so they add getting more safety features around Bayou Lafourche or making them go deeper underneath Bayou Lafourche. And we just had a big ethylene accident. I think it was last year or 2017 in Bayou Lafourche. So putting a new ethylene pipeline, we want the agencies to consider that specifically. And we see this gas pipeline goes all the way up to a storage area up the river. Saving that as a KML allows us to share it with other folks. Here's the ACE pipeline. Here's the boardwalk. And here are the Enterprise and EnLink associated with the Formosa facility. You can see what parishes they're in. I've also got the coastal zone here. So the border of St. James Parish and Ascension is the border of the coastal zone as well. Just so happens to be this. But we want to know, you know, does this pipeline disproportionately impact environmental justice communities, Black folks, Vietnamese folks, Fisher folks, poor folks, Native American folks. And so what we want to do in a standard method that we have is to compare, we find EJ communities by comparing block group data to parish demographic data. This is one sociological method. We've been able to convince the Corps to do it, you know, a little bit. DOT does it. So, you know, it's not the final answer on whether or not a place is an EJ community, but, you know, we're striving for some sane policy. It's almost, it's closer than anything I've ever heard of. It's sociologically getting close to how communities see themselves, which of course is a very varied, multitudinous question. So, but we, you know, we've got 5 minutes, so we can't go out and do an interview of folks to see if they think they're an environmental justice community, and neither can the government. We need the government to do these reviews. So once we have this KML, they can do the review, and if they don't do it, we can do it for them, because there's, you know, there's times when they don't want to do it because it reveals some discrimination by our government, which they're not going to want to talk about. So I've got the Louisiana block groups, and we can then use our GIS to say we want to select every block group. Oh, I'm still in the parish, excuse me. Select every block group having to do with the ACE pipeline, right? And there we've got a number of block groups. We can then go to our map we can make a table for the ACE pipeline or its alternatives with the block groups that it goes through. You see, we're going to be mostly going through St. James Parish, which the red on this map indicates a plurality of African Americans, whereas the purple indicates a plurality of white folks. We're in the for ACE, we're in St. James, and we are in Lafourche, and then for Boardwalk, we're in St. James, Ascension, and Iberville. So, you know, these are parishes of color generally. Ascension has a lot of white folks in suburban Baton Rouge and Gonzales, but on the West Bank, we know who lives there. So for the ACE pipeline, you know, we can go through for these two counties, get the stats there. Let me show you. It brings up a table, you know, like for Lafourche Parish, you can look at the non-white population, the largest minority population, which is African American or Black, and then the American Indian population, 2.8%, which is pretty significant, right? And we know that too. You know, the coastal Louisiana often has disproportionate impacts. Impacts to coastal Louisiana are disproportionate to Native Americans because the United Homa Nation is concentrated over the different groups of Biloxi, Chitimacha, Choctaw, Petit Caillou Band, Eldridge and Charles Band. There's the Pointe-au-Chien tribe. There's Atakapa Ishak folks. A lot of Native folks, Native people on the coastal parishes, and a lot of African American folks live along the river. So if we have something that's only coastal and riverine, it might have a disproportionate number of block groups affecting EJ communities. So we're going to look at that. We're going to say, you know, we know District 5 has, you know, 93% Black folks, 94% non-white, compared to a 50 or 60% at the parish level. So that makes it 94 is greater than 60, or the other block group is 85 is greater than 52. And so that's disproportionate impact. That's an environmental justice community, that block group. We continue to do this for down into Lafourche Parish and for the ACE pipeline, and we find, you know, that some block groups are the African American towns, but actually, as you go further down the coast, you find disproportionate impact to Latinx, Hispanic, Latino communities, because they become the dominant minority, along with Black folks. But these block groups, some of them are disproportionate impact on the basis of the percent non-white, and some of them are environmental justice communities by virtue of the fact that they're disproportionately Native American. You see that as you get closer to the coast. That's what we know. I mean, it's obvious to anyone who lives here. But here's a table that gives an authority to that information, you know, that explains it in black and white, so to speak. Something a regulator can understand. That this pipeline, when we see whose communities does this go through, out of the 11 total communities, 7 of them are EJ, and 7 divided by 11 is more than half. So that's kind of the rule of thumb. You know, if you have more than half, this is a disparate impact, and pipeline should go someplace else that doesn't target communities that have been discriminated against. You could also probably find more than 7 groups if you included the economic information. So we need our government to do that. As part of environmental justice is socioeconomics. It may be those 7, you know, if you looked at economics. You may not pick up an additional area, but frankly, I would be surprised if you didn't, because you know there are some areas that have white folks that don't have a lot. Trying to click on income. This map can also give you a little sense of income. And you know, there's a big East Bank, West Bank divide. So for ACE pipeline, as we get closer to the coast, we've got some well-to-do folks in Thibodaux, but you pass that up and we're getting into folks with less money. So you might pick up an additional block group if you included economics. We want the government to do that. For the boardwalk pipeline, we're going the other way, and we see a similar thing. African American folks are disproportionately impacted along the river. That's kind of obvious. I mean, almost every one of these block groups is disproportionately African American compared to their parish, right? So we're not comparing, you know, does these block groups have more black folks than the United States? I mean, of course they do. We knew that. Even comparing it to the parish, of course we do. But even within a parish, you know, these areas have more people of color than average. So, you know, don't tell us there's no place on the river where this isn't the case, because that's not true. This is a very refined, geographically refined analysis. And it's still picking up, you know, for this boardwalk pipeline, in almost every single area is disproportionately impacting African American people. So this goes along with that theme of the Formosa Plan, right? They didn't look at anything. It's not just, you know, before we saw Hispanic people were put in danger disproportionately. With this Formosa project, it's you know, it's more specific. There are some groups as you get into Iberville Parish, you know, you have less than average groups of African American folks and where the pipeline is going. But those areas tend to be disproportionately Native American with some overlap in between, right? So when we look at the boardwalk pipeline, every single, and we didn't do economics. You could probably look at economics and find that, you know, folks around White Castle and Donaldsonville aren't as well off as some. But you can't get any more than 10. So even though we want the government to look at economics of who lives in the area, 10 for 10, you know, this is disparate impact to non-white and Native American communities. So I was trying to make this a shorter video. I'm going to keep trying, but that gives you the process for, you know, looking up areas based on previously known permits, finding new pipelines, finding their shape files, and then putting those shape files, giving them to someone like me or Justin Cray or anybody who does maps in the movement, who can then assess, you know, how, you know, we can do these environmental justice analyses, so we can communicate this to judges, to elected officials, to anyone. That, you know, it's not just our imagination that this kind of discrimination is going on. Okay, well, thanks so much. I hope you learned something. Bye.